And this episode is such a missed opportunity, and the reason is simple. It didn't air in or around Halloween. It absolutely screams Halloween horror special. It has that vibe written all over it from the very first scene. It opens with Diana driving through dark, eerie woods with Murkrow watching over her. Strange cries echoing in the distance, clouds covering the moon, and the whole atmosphere growing progressively more unsettling. Then we see a dark silhouette with glowing red eyes appear behind her, and the episode cuts away. When we cut to the Brave Olivine, everything feels quiet, tense, and foreboding. It's clear that something is watching the Rising Bolt Tacklers, even though they don't realize it yet. We get the classic killer or creature's POV, elevating tension and suspense through dramatic irony, just like horror movies do. I love as well that, also like horror movies, the assailant remains hidden for a good chunk of the runtime, which further ramps up the feeling of dread and unease. We might know that something is lurking around, unlike the characters, but we don't know what it looks like. So we are still on edge. This is not the case here though, of course, because we know it's Pecharunt. It's great that regardless, they managed to use shadows cleverly to make it look terrifying anyways. I love this and the small details like Pecharunt being reflected in Kilowattrel's eyes as it zooms towards it. Eventually, everything goes wrong and the horror begins. The adults gather to eat some mysterious mochi and suddenly they vanish. Liko and the others are left wondering where they went, and as in every classic horror movie, they split up to search for clues. Which of course, as Scream taught us, is the worst possible decision in a horror scenario. What follows is straight out of a zombie movie. They find the missing adults, but they're not the same anymore. Orla is framed from behind in shadows. Molly is shown through a curtain with glowing red eyes. The presentation is genuinely creepy. From here, the horror, especially zombie, movie parallels become even stronger. The characters try to hide and barricade themselves in a safe place. Then, one by one, they disappear. Some get taken out off screen, others fall in front of our eyes. There's even the classic sacrifice moment where someone stays behind so the others can escape. So, as is standard, the number of survivors dwindles while the number of infected keeps growing. Eventually, only one survivor remains, who also ends up falling. Normally, at least one person lives to tell the tale, but not here. It genuinely feels like one of those bleak, old-school horror films where nobody makes it out alive. All of this would be perfect for a full-on horror special if the zombies were actually scary. Instead, the twist is that these possessed people don't bite anyone or attack violently. They just dance. And while that's certainly creepy in an uncanny way, people staring at you with blank expressions while dancing, it's also impossible to take it completely seriously as horror. That said, since the culprit is Pecharunt, this is actually accurate to the games. In the epilogue of Scarlet and Violet, Mochi Mayhem, the people Pecharunt controls also dance in this same ridiculous way. So while it kind of deflates the horror atmosphere, this episode so carefully and masterfully built up It's also faithful to the source material, which is always good, and it also ends up being pretty funny. I also love the detail that Petarant takes control of Lucario, Kilowattrel, and Cap, and uses them as stand-ins for the loyal three, Okidogi, Monkidori, and Fezandipiti. The parallels mostly line up. Fezandipiti is a bird, and so is Kilowattrel. Okidogi is a canine, and Lucario fills that role nicely. And while Cap is a mouse replacing a monkey, it still works well enough thematically, especially since Cap is the shortest, like Monkidori. So Petarant basically assembles a surrogate loyal 3, which is a really fun and clever touch. By the end, the episode fully embraces the absurdity and turns into a full-on dance party. I love that Quaxwell ignores how bizarre this all is because he's just happy that everyone is dancing and he joins in. Most of the other Pokemon do too, including, adorably, Petarant itself. Pagogo even hilariously and fittingly becomes a disco ball. The whole thing turns into complete chaos in the silliest way possible. Honestly, even though I'm disappointed we didn't get a fully committed horror episode, I can't deny that it's funny and strangely charming. Plus, in a weird way, it still feels like a horror movie, albeit a horror comedy that mixes spooky setups with slapstick humor. Of course, in the end, it turns out that Petarant actually belongs to Diana. The creepy shadow with red eyes from earlier was Petarant. And all of this happened because Diana wanted a bigger place to sleep than her car. Petarant took this wish very literally. It found the brave Olivine and decided to secure it for her. This is such a simple, ridiculous motivation behind what looked like a full-blown horror scenario. And this contrast is honestly really funny. So for what it is, I really enjoyed it. I love horror after all, therefore even with the intentionally silly execution, the atmosphere and structure were a lot of fun. The only real tragedy is, again, that this didn't air around Halloween, because it would have been absolutely perfect for the season. Now, Diana having a mythical Pokemon is no small thing, of course. This alone makes this episode pretty significant. Normally, I would make a much bigger deal of a character capturing something as rare and special as a mythical Pokemon. But in Horizons, where we already have multiple legendary Pokemon running around, being inherited, being allied with the cast, and generally being everywhere, it's honestly much easier to accept than it otherwise would be. Still, what really sells it here isn't just the capture itself, but the origin story behind it, which I absolutely love, because it plays out almost exactly like the Japanese folklore tale of Momotaro, which is the inspiration for Petarant. In the original Momotaro story, a boy is born from a giant peach found floating down a river. Diana finds a giant peach floating down a river as well, except since this is Pokemon, it's a Pecha Berry instead, which is a really cute and clever detail. Like Momotaro, Petarant was born from the peach, and the people who found it are an old woman and an old man, here represented by Diana and Hamber. Hilariously, Hamber really does not appreciate being called an old man, even though, like, come on. Also, I love that they followed the folk tale so closely that just like the old woman in the story, Diana was doing laundry by the river, hilariously with Wash Rotom, a fun and a cute touch. Inadvertently, they ended up unleashing Petarant on the Kitakami Hamlet, which is the setting of Mochi Mayhem, so once again, the episode stays very faithful to the source material. This led to the same kind of dancing zombie outbreak, and back then, Petarant also assembled a surrogate Loyal 3, but in a way that was even more one-to-one. A Lycanroc took the role of Okidogi, an Apom took the role of Monkidori, and a Bombardier took the role of Pheasantipity. Eventually, Diana and Hamber defeated the surrogate Loyal 3 and Petarant, and just like in the original Folklore and in Petarant's own lore, it latched onto the old man and old woman as precious figures in its life. When Diana lost the Pechaberry and mentioned needing one, Petarant interpreted this as a wish and started gathering berries for her, leading to the whole incident. It's the same pattern we see in the present. Petarant isn't acting out of malice, it's just taking Diana's words and wishes far too literally and trying to fulfill them in the only way it knows how. Both times, Diana makes it clear that she doesn't want anyone doing things for her or giving her things, which is perfectly in character for her. She's a free-spirited adventurer who wants to get what she wants herself and by her own means. This episode ends up doing something really clever in terms of continuity. Back in episode 107, Hamber and Diana were shown walking away from what looked like a tough battle, and Diana was holding a Pokeball containing a newly caught Pokemon. At the time, I predicted in my review of that episode that this had to be a special Pokemon, because the scene was framed with a lot of mystery. But then, in the next episode, when she showed up with Revaroom and Wash Rotom, I assumed one of them was the Pokemon she caught. Turns out, it was Petarant. So episode 107 actually takes place right after this whole Petarant incident, and episode 123 retroactively explains what that scene was about. I really love this kind of delayed payoff, where you suddenly realize, oh, so that's what that moment was. I also really like how deeply Petarant and the Loyal 3 are tied into the Momotaro story. In Japanese, Petarant is literally called Momowaro, directly referencing Momotaro. It even looks like a peach while in its shell, and outside of its shell, it has what resembles the headband ponytail combo Momotaro is often depicted with. The Loyal 3 are based on the dog, monkey, and pheasant that accompany Momotaro in the tale, and the ogre they fight is represented in Pokemon by Ogerpon. The big twist though is that in the original story, Momotaro and his companions win, while in Pokemon, Ogerpon defeats the Loyal 3 and Petarant instead. I love this inversion of roles, and I love how this episode leans into those roots so openly. If you have watched enough anime, you have probably seen Momotaro referenced or parodied dozens of times. So it's really satisfying to see Pokemon fully commit to that inspiration and build story and lore around it. Like, even having the possessed chant Kibi Kibi as they dance is a reference to Momotaro, since Kibidango play a key role in the story. Finally, can someone please tell me, when did Roy get infected? One moment he was just fine running away with Liko, and then suddenly he was one of them. Did I miss it? Did he do the equivalent to hiding your zombie bite? Or was this just a continuity error? Also, the episode ends with Ludlow still infected. He ate some mochi too, so he must have gotten infected as well. But he did not show up alongside everyone else. So did they just forget about him, or did he like the dance that much? So overall, how do I feel about this episode? Honestly, for the most part, it does feel like filler. The main story doesn't really move forward in a big way. What saves it from being pure filler is the fact that we learned that Diana has a new Pokemon, which ties back to episode 107, recontextualizing that mysterious scene, and the fact that Diana gives Liko an auspicious armor for Sharkadet, which it will obviously use to evolve. These two things at least give this episode some tangible value to the ongoing story. On top of this, after several very heavy, very important, very plot-dense episodes, it's kind of nice to have a breather, a spooky, silly, self-contained adventure before things inevitably get serious again. So even if it's mostly a side story, I still had a lot of fun with it. It's a charming, goofy horror comedy episode with some nice lore, some nice callbacks, and just enough relevance to justify its existence in the bigger picture. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, feel free to click the links on screen. And if you'd like to support the channel and help me keep making content like this, you can find all the ways to do so in the description and in the pinned comment. Whether it's through a small donation or just watching and sharing, every bit of support means the world to me. Thank you so very much for watching, and let's meet again in the next video.